The snow outside my apartment window looked like falling ash, soft, endless, silent. I hadn't seen a real Christmas in 7 years. Not since before the desert, before the sound of helicopters became the only kind of carol I knew. My name's Lauren Parker, and this December morning, I was packing to go home. Home. The word still felt heavy on my tongue, like something I hadn't earned back yet. The hum of the heater filled the quiet as I folded my uniform jacket, smoothing the creases with more care than I gave most things. The faint scent of gun oil still clung to it, stubborn, familiar. I checked my reflection in the mirror. Hair shorter now, eyes older. I'd survived 2 tours, led a team, rebuilt myself from sand and sweat. But nothing made my hands shake quite like the thought of stepping back into my father's house. My phone buzzed on the counter, cutting through the stillness. I smiled without meaning to. Maybe it was him, finally ready to say, "Can't wait to see you, kiddo." But the screen said something else. "Dad, don't come." Just that. 2 words. No punctuation, no warmth. The air left my lungs like a punch. I stared at the message, heart thudding in my throat, snow still falling outside, the world carrying on like nothing had just split open inside me. Still, after everything I'd faced, I wasn't sure I knew how to turn back now. The last time I stood in my father's kitchen, the air smelled of pine cleaner and anger. I was 19, wearing a faded hoodie and a backpack full of dreams he didn't understand. "Lauren, this isn't the movies," he'd said, voice sharp as glass. "You don't belong out there. You're not built for war." I remember the tremor in my fingers as I gripped the edge of the table. "You mean I'm not built like you?" I shot back. "I'm sorry I don't fit your idea of safe." His jaw tightened, the same way it always did when he wanted to control something, me mostly. "Your mother wanted you to have a life here. You think she'd want this?" That stopped me cold. Mom had died 2 years earlier. She'd been the bridge between us, kind, patient, the only one who saw me without judgment. I swallowed hard. "Maybe she'd want me to live," I whispered. He looked away, and in that silence, something broke that neither of us knew how to fix. When I turned to leave, my grandmother, Evelyn, was waiting by the door. She pressed a small, tarnished silver compass into my hand. "Your mom carried this when she first left home," she said softly. "It doesn't point north. It points true. You'll know where to go." I still remember how cold that compass felt against my palm, heavy with history, warm with her faith in me. "Thank you," I said, voice trembling. Dad didn't come to the door when I walked out. I heard the TV turn up louder instead, his way of drowning me out. The night air bit through my jacket, but it felt cleaner than the air inside that house. I slung the backpack over my shoulder, gripping the compass so tightly the edges dug into my skin. I didn't look back. Not once. As I reached the bus station, snowflakes mixed with my tears. I told myself I wasn't running away. I was running toward something. Toward purpose. Toward myself. The military recruiter had said, "You'll see the world, learn discipline, make something of yourself." I clung to that promise like oxygen. And when I boarded that bus at 19, I didn't know it yet, but I wasn't just leaving my father's house. I was leaving the version of myself that needed his approval to survive. The military didn't care that I was someone's daughter or that I'd left behind a house full of silence. It cared that I could run, shoot, endure, and lead. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere, even if it was in the middle of chaos. The first year was brutal. I remember lying awake in barracks at 3 a.m., sore in every muscle, wondering if Dad had been right. My hands blistered from rifle drills. My voice went hoarse from shouting commands I wasn't sure anyone respected. But then came the moment that changed everything. The day my unit got caught in a sandstorm in Kandahar. Visibility was 0, comms were down, and fear crept into every corner of my mind. But I remembered something my commanding officer, Captain Ramirez, had told me a week earlier. "Courage isn't about not being scared, Parker. It's about moving anyway." So I moved. I led. And when the storm cleared, everyone under my command was accounted for. That night, Captain Ramirez handed me a black patch with a golden eagle, my promotion. You earned this, he said. Not because you're tough. Because you didn't quit. I carried that lesson like armor. Through years of service, through deployments that blurred together, through sleepless nights, writing letters home that never got replies. I'd stopped expecting texts from Dad after the second year. He didn't even call when I got my commendation medal. When I finally came home, not to him, but to the States, I wasn't the same girl who left. I'd seen things I couldn't talk about, lost people whose names still echo in my prayers. But I wasn't broken. I was tempered. I took my savings and started small, a veteran training program in Seattle. It began with just 3 people in a rented gym, helping soldiers transition to civilian life, teaching leadership, discipline, and confidence. Word spread. Within a year, a major corporate sponsor reached out. Within 3, I was running my own nonprofit foundation, the Compass Project, named after the gift Grandma Evelyn gave me that night. I spoke at conferences. I trained CEOs. I helped women like me find their footing after the uniform came off. But I never told my family, not out of spite, out of fear that hope would reopen the wound I'd finally learned to live with. When reporters asked about my upbringing, I simply said, I came from a small town. My mother believed in me. That was enough. Then, last month, I got a call from Grandma Evelyn's nurse. She said Grandma's health was fading and that she'd been asking for me. That's why I booked the ticket. Not for Dad. For her. For the woman who saw my truth before I did. I'd imagined maybe he'd see me at the door. Maybe his pride would finally show through that hard shell. Instead, I got that message. 2 words that shattered all the miles I'd fought through. Don't come. The drive back to my hometown felt longer than any deployment. Snow piled high along the interstate, the world washed in gray and white. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to ache. I told myself I was going for Grandma Evelyn, but a part of me knew I was chasing closure that never came. The town hadn't changed. Same gas station with the flickering sign. Same church steeple piercing the winter sky. Even the Parker house looked frozen in time. The blue shutters faded, the porch light still flickering like it had been waiting for someone who never returned. When I stepped out of the car, the cold hit hard. My boots crunched against the ice as I walked up to the door. For a second, I almost turned back. But the compass in my coat pocket felt warm against my palm, as if reminding me why I came. I knocked once. The door opened halfway. My father stood there, taller than I remembered, but smaller somehow. The lines on his face were deeper, his eyes tired. He didn't say a word, just stared at me like I was a ghost. "Hi, Dad," I said quietly. His lips parted, then closed again. Finally, he muttered, "You shouldn't have come." I smiled faintly, bitter and soft all at once. "Yeah, you texted that." He stepped aside reluctantly, letting me in. The smell of coffee and pine filled the air, familiar, painful. Family photos lined the walls. Him, Grandma, even one of Mom. None of me. "Grandma's upstairs," he said, voice tight. She's been waiting." When I entered her room, the warmth nearly undid me. Evelyn looked small beneath the quilt, her silver hair glowing under the lamp. But when she saw me, her eyes lit up. "My brave girl," she whispered. I knelt beside her bed, taking her fragile hand in mine. "I'm here, Grandma." She smiled faintly. "Your compass worked, didn't it?" "It did," I said. "It led me home." Dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. He didn't move closer, just lingered, silent. When Grandma fell asleep, I turned to him. "Why, Dad?" I asked. "Why send that message?" He looked away, jaw flexing. "Because I didn't want to fight. Not after all this time. You've got your life now. You don't need this place." "You mean you didn't want to face me?" I said, my voice low. He turned sharply. "You think it's easy for me? Watching my daughter walk away to get shot at in someone else's war." "I didn't walk away from you," I said. "You pushed me out the door." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked softly. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a leather folder. I laid it on the table between us. Inside were photos of my unit, of me in uniform shaking hands with generals, of smiling families at the Veteran Center. Newspaper clippings with headlines like, "The Compass Project helps thousands of returning soldiers find hope." His hands hovered over the papers but didn't touch them. "This is you?" he asked quietly. "All me," I said. "I built it from nothing. I did what you said I couldn't." His breath hitched. His eyes glistened, but he blinked it away fast. "Lauren." I shook my head gently. "You told me once I'd never make it out there. You were wrong. I made it everywhere." The silence that followed felt heavier than any explosion I'd ever heard. But for the first time, it wasn't suffocating, it was cleansing. He looked around the room, as if seeing me for the first time. "Your mother would have been proud," he whispered. "She already was," I said softly. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd last argued. Only now, I wasn't the trembling girl with a backpack. I was the woman who'd survived everything he said I couldn't. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between us. Outside, the snow had started again, soft flakes brushing the window like forgiveness, waiting to fall. Dad stared at the photos spread across the table, newspaper clippings, awards, faces of people whose lives had changed because of the Compass Project. He traced one edge with his thumb. "You did all this," he said, almost to himself. "I did," I answered quietly. "With people who believed in me when you didn't." He winced, eyes closing for a moment. "You're right. I should have believed in you. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just afraid." "Afraid of what?" I asked gently. He swallowed. "Of losing you like I lost your mom. She got sick right after you left. I kept thinking, if I'd just made you stay, maybe I wouldn't be alone." The words landed heavy, but they didn't shatter me. For the first time, I could see past his anger to the grief underneath. Still, the little girl in me, the one who begged for his approval, needed more than excuses. "I can forgive you," I said softly, "but things have to change." He looked up, wary. "Change?" "I'm not here to play the obedient daughter again," I said, my tone firm but calm. "If you want me in your life, you have to meet me halfway. No more shame about my choices. No more silence. You treat me like the woman I am, not the mistake you tried to prevent." He nodded slowly, eyes damp. "You have my word." I turned toward the living room, where the rest of the family had gathered, my cousins, my aunt, people who'd whispered over the years that I'd lost myself in the army. They fell quiet as I entered. "I know some of you thought I'd never come back," I began. "But I didn't disappear, I built something. And I didn't come here to prove you wrong. I came here to show you what happens when you stop letting fear make your choices." They shifted, uneasy but listening. "If you want my help, I'll give it," I continued. "But only if you're ready to fight for your own lives. Anne-Marie, stop waiting for perfect to start that bakery. You've been talking about it for 10 years. Sam, go to college. Stop saying you're too old. You're not." The room was silent. Then Dad stood behind me, his voice rough but steady. "She's right," he said. "It's time we stop living small." For a second, my chest tightened. Not from pain this time, from something that felt dangerously close to pride. I smiled faintly. "Then let's start there." The room seemed to exhale, the tension breaking like thawing ice. And for the first time in years, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt alive. By morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight streamed through the frost-laced windows, turning the snow outside into 1,000 tiny mirrors. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Grandma Evelyn's nurse had made breakfast, and for once, laughter floated softly through the air. I stood by the window, sipping from a chipped mug I'd used as a kid, watching the light dance across the driveway. It felt unreal, how peace could settle in the same place that once held so much hurt. Dad entered quietly, a blanket draped over his shoulders. He looked older in the daylight, gentler too. In his hands, he held something wrapped in a faded blue handkerchief. "I think this belongs to you," he said, placing it on the table. I unwrapped it slowly. The silver compass. Grandma's compass. Its face was scratched, its chain worn, but when I turned it toward the light, it still caught the sun like it was brand new. She wanted you to have it, Dad said, voice low. Said you'd know what to do with it when it came back home. I swallowed the lump in my throat. She was right. He hesitated, then took a shaky breath. Lauren, I'm proud of you. I don't know if I deserve a second chance, but I'd like to try. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see the man who pushed me away. I saw the man who was finally brave enough to say he was sorry. You already started, I said softly. Later, I stood outside with my coat zipped to my chin, the compass warm in my gloved hand. The snow had quieted to a soft drift, the kind that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. I could hear the faint sound of carols from a nearby house, smell the smoke from the neighbor's chimney. Simple things I'd forgotten how much I missed. As I watched the morning unfold, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally understood something my grandmother tried to teach me all along. Home isn't the place that never hurt you. It's the place that gives you the courage to come back stronger. I looked down at the compass, smiled, and whispered to myself, home isn't where you're born. It's where you're finally seen. And for the first time in a long, long while, I was home.